thing. Good morning and welcome to Decorah UU. My name is Karen Estrel. My pronouns are she, her, and I'll be leading the service today. We are a welcoming, lay-led spiritual community moving together in time in an open search for truth and meaning. We believe in people's inherent capacity to lead ethical lives of personal fulfillment, pursuing the good of humanity. Just a reminder, this service is being both live streamed and recorded. Anything you say will therefore be publicly available online, except for those portions of the service during which we pause recording. If you are visiting us today, we welcome you. Please note that you can complete the form at decorahuu.org/contact-us to receive our weekly electronic newsletter or to learn more about our congregation. You can learn more about Unitarian Universalism at uua.org. For the sake of those who may be joining us by audio only, I will highlight a couple of the announcements printed in our bulletin, which is also available on our website, decorahuu.org. Most of the announcements this week are oft repeated ones, but I do want to note that we're still on an every other Sunday service schedule, so we will not have a service next Sunday, March 7th. You're, of course, encouraged to virtually visit other UU congregations, including the Church of the Larger Fellowship on our off Sundays. When we gather again on March 14th, we will be treated to Luther Professor Andy Hageman's presentation, Imagining Worlds of Justice Through Science Fiction. Are there any other announcements that someone would like to add or uplift? I'll ask our phone-only participants first. Please press *6 to unmute if you have an announcement and you're on the phone. All right, if you are online, you can raise your Zoom hand, which has traditionally been in participants, but may now be under reactions if you have updated your Zoom client recently. Carl, I see you're unmuted. I don't know if that's because you want to share something or just because it's a leftover from our pre-service conversation. You're muted now, so I'm assuming there is not an announcement from Carl. Anybody else who would like to share anything?
Sorry.
No problem. All right, I think the announcements portion of our service is over then. Today's service relates to our monthly theme. The theme for the month of February has been covenant. Now, here is where I realized that I failed to set up everything that I wanted to set up because I forgot that today I plan on lighting a real chalice, but I don't have a real chalice near me. So we're going to all use our imaginations as I hold fire in the palm of my hand. Although Ellis might be coming to the rescue. My spouse is listening in on today's service and I hear them running up the stairs. So maybe we'll have a real chalice after all. I normally use a video of a chalice at this point, but I was like, today I will have a real fire in real time. And then I did not. Thank you. Thanks to Ellis Arnold, my spouse and wonderful person. All right, so I'm going to hold this chalice in front of me and light the chalice and then invite you to read along at home on mute. Love is the spirit of this church and service is its law. This is our covenant to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, to serve human need, and to help one another. As I was just helped. As the description for today's service noted, Unitarian Universalism is a covenantal, not creedal faith. Our beloved UU principles are actually encoded in our bylaws and are preceded by these words. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote. These are very carefully chosen words. Note that the focus is on actually congregations, not on individuals, and that these congregations covenant, that is, they come together, and that the focus is on doing something, affirming and promoting, which involves outward action rather than believing something, an inner conviction. One popular way of characterizing our faith is the phrase, "We need not think alike in order to love alike." The Reverend Lisa Ward explains covenant and creed like so. A creed creates a static truth that does not incorporate new insights and realities. A covenant is a dance of co-creation, keeping in step with one another in the flow of our lives. A creed seeks uniformity and a unison voice. A covenant seeks harmony and a shared voice. A creed gives authority to the statements. A covenant gives authority to shared intention. A creed creates an us and them. A covenant invites relationship. A creed is a prescription that must be relied on. A covenant relies on the treasures of shared truth. In Unitarian Universalism, no one is required to recite a creed. All are welcome to embrace their own theological, even completely atheistic beliefs. But we are encouraged to enter into covenant with one another within our congregation, with the Mid-America region of which we are a part, and with the Unitarian Universalist Association. Members of Decorah UU reaffirm our congregational covenant every year during the covenant renewal process, when we promise to honor the fact that the work of our fellowship involves a significant investment of time and energy. We promise to pledge our time, financial support, and talents to the work of the fellowship. And we promise to be respectful, friendly, and welcoming to all members, visitors, and staff. Some religious organizations focus solely on the financial support using phrases like annual stewardship campaign or pledge drive or canvas, the last of which I think is commonly used among New England UUs. Linda might know something about that. I had never heard it before, but apparently canvassing is a big deal. Our congregation, however, has been intentional in approaching this annual renewal more comprehensively, understanding that we are not just trying to make budget predictions, we are affirming anew the covenant that we have made to create and sustain beloved community. So the songs and the stories we'll be sharing today are exploring interrelated themes: scarcity versus abundance, generosity, the power of communal action, and the ways in which we strengthen our covenant. As such, our opening song will be the song Right Here. I will share with you momentarily. Please remain on mute, but sing along at home.
Travel long, we travel far to be right here where we are. Reach out a hand, no need to fear, 'cause all we need is right here. All we need, all we need, all we need is right here. All we need, all we need, all we need is right here. The night was dark, but the day is bright. Together we can lift our eyes to all we love and we hold dear. all we need is right here. Sing this. All we need, all we need, all we need is right here. All we need, all we need, all we need is right here. All we need, all we need, all we need is right here.
As has been our practice, we acknowledge the traditional indigenous inhabitants of the land. In Northeast Iowa, we acknowledge this area was home to the Iowa, whose traditional name is Makoche, the Sac and Fox, the Fox's traditional name is Meskwaki, the Dakota, and the Ho-Chunk, peoples whose relationship to this land continues today. Acknowledgement is a critical public intervention, a necessary step toward honoring Native communities and enacting the much larger project of decolonization and reconciliation. I invite you to take a moment for reflection upon the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that have shaped our presence here today, and to adopt an attitude of reverence and gratitude for the ongoing resilience of this place and the people who have called it home. So, as many of you know, especially already given their presence during today's service, I am married to the Reverend Ellis Arnold, who served as pastor of Decorah UCC and is now an associate conference minister in the United Church of Christ, serving Iowa, Nebraska, and South Dakota conferences. Ellis gave me permission to share portions of a service they did a few years back. At the beginning of the sermon, the camera is really focused on Ellis, but the assembled congregation could see some other activity. Crouched below the piano at the front of the sanctuary, the church pianist was placing Beanie Baby after Beanie Baby on top of the instrument. I'm happy to say that the camera operator did eventually pull back so that you too can see the growing menagerie, but you may hear some laughter and some comments before you get to see the Beanie Babies. That this will help you to understand why that is happening. Let me switch over to Scarcity and Beanie Babies.
I opened my first business when I was 10.
It started playing immediately, even though it was on the wrong screen. One moment. Did you hear that Ellis started their own business when they were young? Here we go.
10 or 11. I was a lawnmower extraordinaire with an eye for straight lines and very clean patterns. And I was rolling in the money. Mowing lawns, I soon discovered, was quite a lucrative venture for a 10-year-old. And so I saved and I saved and I saved, hardly spending a dime, until these things came along. These are Beanie Babies. As any child of the 90s can tell you, they were all the rage. They first made their appearance on the scene in '93 with 9 original designs. Within a year or two, they were this sort of hotly trending toy with children and adults alike collecting these cute $5 sack of beans. Folks seriously could not get enough of these. It's just gonna get worse. Ty, the company making these Beanie Babies, had this brilliant marketing scheme: scarcity. It was really simple. It was an exercise in supply and demand. Keep the supply low, keep people unable to get their hands on them, and the demand, well, it goes through the roof. And that's exactly what happened. My friend Jenny and I had this whole Beanie Baby collecting thing down to a science. There was a list of local stores that sold these Beanie Babies, and so on weekends and every day during the summer, we split that list in half and called each store to see if they had received any, and if so, what time they'd put them on the shelves. We weren't the only ones. This was the 90s, and so stores had actually had so many phone calls that they had gotten sick of fielding these inquiries, and so they just let it go to the recording, which would give you all of that information. If a store had those Beanie Babies, we'd start stage 2, beg the parents for a ride. These beanie sales were no small venture. The lines usually took hours, and so our parents would usually drop us off, and we'd call, via payphone, mind you, when we were done. Day after day, we did this, calling and standing in line and trolling garage sales and flea markets, nearly drooling over the rarest of the rare. The company making these Beanie Babies knew something about the human psyche. The more scarce something is, the more precious and treasured and sought after it will be. Mistakes and variances in the production of these tiny sacks of beans made some so scarce that appearance could practically start riots. There's some of those down there. I don't know if they've come out yet. It's gonna get even worse. I'm sorry, y'all. This whole project, this whole process of collecting, it was addicting. There was this sort of adrenaline rush of racing into stores and this sense of utter gratification every time we forked over the cash at that register, holding some hard-to-get, scarcely found Beanie Baby. And so we bought and we bought and we bought, and the more we bought, the better we seemed to feel and the prouder we were. Humans have this sort of weird relationship to scarcity. On the one hand, scarcity seems to be the sort of origin of value. The more scarce a resource is, the more valuable it is. The most valued gems and minerals, after all, are never the ones you find in your own backyard. The most valued skills aren't cutting paper or boiling water. The most valued skills are things like the ability to manage international corporations or the ability to throw a football further and more accurately than anybody else, right? We value these things because they're just so scarce. And yet, what's really sort of weird is that we both value and fear scarcity at the same time. Our fear of scarcity leads us to see our lives through the lens of not enough and what if and that sort of thing, rather than the lens of there is enough and life is good.
I'm going to fast forward us a little bit, but you will see that the collection has grown by the time we get close to Ellis's conclusion.
This Beanie Baby collecting, thankfully, eventually sort of lost its allure. It was in the midst of sorting and organizing these seemingly prized possessions for display one day, while I was still grumbling and all caught up about one that I hadn't been able to get, that I realized how messed up my priorities had become, how misplaced my focus really was. Here I was in my room, brooding over a sack of beans, angry, surrounded by about a bajillion of them, and it still wasn't enough. My narrowly focused, dorky, Beanie Baby hoarding 14-year-old self realized that day how caught up I had become. Much of that myth about rarity equaling value I had mistakenly bought into. My mother was incredibly gleeful to bring these tokens of my childhood to live with me after I moved to Decorah. So gleeful it came in her first truckload of possessions. And as embarrassing as all of this really is, really is, these sit in my closet as these sort of reminders of the strangeness and the goofiness of life and who we are. All of us, I think, really have this propensity to sometimes get a little off topic, to get caught up, to lose focus, to focus more on what we don't have rather than what we do. But we're always invited back to refocus, to see what there is to be grateful for, and to let that guide our lives.
So after that service, Ellis invited congregants to take Beanie Babies home as tangible reminders of the fact that we often act out of perceived scarcity. Our household, however, continued to experience abundance, at least as far as Beanie Babies were concerned. We still had hundreds. Ellis has since found homes for many of these tiny stuffed animals. When we introduced our niece and nephews to Harry Potter, we gave them Beanie Babies as their wizarding familiars. This past Christmas, they got yet more, this time corresponding to animals and books we'd given them as presents. And in fact, Ellis just this past week packed a grocery bag full of Beanie Babies to send to a friend who teaches elementary school and who will distribute them to her students to serve as reading buddies. And yet, as you can see, maybe, we still have plenty of Beanie Babies. This is just a fraction of the bean stuffed creatures that remain. Again, abundance. We are invited to embrace an attitude of an abundance and generosity rather than scarcity and frugality. Decorah UU is committed to sharing our own abundance with the community through our Share the Plate program, which we'll talk more about later. There's a post on the UUA website by Rachel Maxwell that goes, "Our 7 principles and sources include this promise we make to ourselves and each other. As free congregations, we enter into covenant, promising to one another our mutual trust and support. This covenant requires a sense of abundance. That support requires something of us, even when times are tough. And we UUs are remarkably good at supporting each other, for we are a generous people." One of the ways we support each other is through a central portion of every UU service, the sharing of joys and sorrows. So at this time, I would like to invite anyone who wishes to do so to share with us a personal joy, concern, or milestone in your life. If you are on the phone, please press *6 to share, and then I will invite online participants. If you are online, you can use the raise hand feature. And if you're one of my co-hosts, you'll just have to like unmute yourself or wave your actual physical hand, and hopefully I'll be able to see you. I don't get to see everybody's video at once. I see Steve's hand is raised. Steve.
Excuse me. I'd like to share a sorrow, but also a joy with everyone here. My husband Randall has had surgery for a kidney tumor, and it went well. That was at the end of January. However, he's now discovered he has AFib and is going through some challenges with that. He's getting great care at Winneshiek, and we are weathering the storm, so to speak. And I ask you to keep him in your prayers.
Thank you, Steve. Linda.
Hi, for those of you who don't know me, I was a member of the Decorah UU Fellowship for 7 years, and I'm now a minister in Northborough, Massachusetts. And I'm on sabbatical, so I have some Sundays off, and I am just overjoyed to be able to join you, see familiar faces and new ones. The technology that makes this possible, my heart's full.
Good to see you, Linda. Don't forget to remute yourself after you have shared. Jean, do you have something to share?
Yeah, I still don't know how to raise my hand, but hey, okay. Well, I have one of both. As some of you know, I had to put down yet another cat. So that's 2 animals I have lost in this past month. But on the joy side, I am adopting Chunk tomorrow. Chunk is another stray cat that has showed up, and the neighbor's been housing it in her back room during this cold spot, and Chunk is joining our family tomorrow. He's a big, fat little gray cat.
Sweet. I will light a virtual candle for the joys or concerns that are unspoken but remain in our hearts and minds. Please join me for a moment of communal silent meditation. And Carolyn, even though I'd made myself a note to pause recording, I forgot to pause recording. So you're going to have to work your crazy video editing skills to cut that chunk out. I'm so sorry. I have a note to myself, resume recording now. I need not resume recording. Please remain muted, but join me in singing the response printed in your bulletin and on the screen. Thank you to Otter Dreaming for recording the accompaniment, which I will play. So at the beginning of the service, I enlisted a few volunteer readers 1 through 5. I hope you remember who you are. We are going to be reading selections from a paper to the Prairie Group. The Prairie Group is a gathering of UU ministers, and this paper was by the Reverend Roy Phillips. Duati, I believe you're first.
We share a common human journey, and so we covenant to value what is common among us over what separates and divides us.
Each of us has unique dignity and gifts, and so we covenant to recognize and celebrate the dignity and gifts among us in the common life we share.
We have a responsibility to envision and create a better world And so we covenant to support and encourage our individual and common efforts towards its attainment.
Despite the mystery that surrounds our ultimate destiny as a human race, our lives are worthy of praise. And so we covenant to help each other engage the mystery with praise.
Religion is the human response to the mysterious otherness we encounter in our lives. And so we covenant to cultivate and explore the religious response among us as a defining and ennobling activity of the human race.
Thank you, readers. Please remember to remute yourself if you have not already done so. As we begin the offering, I'd like to offer you these words by Fia B. Shire. My apologies if I am mispronouncing that person's name. Take joy in your giving. You not only enrich your soul, you also enrich all of creation. Giving is a simple act that becomes a great occasion, for the benefits are incalculable. Even though we are meeting via Zoom, we continue to require the gracious gifts of our members and friends to support our congregation. We understand that present circumstances and uncertainty may affect your ability to provide financial support at this time, but if you can and would like to give, if you're online, you can visit decorahuu.org and click on the Give Online button in the middle of the page to learn of numerous ways to give. If you are participating by phone and do not have internet access, you may mail your check to Decorah UU PO Box 382, Decorah, Iowa 52101. PO Box 382. Note that part of our fellowship's commitment and outreach to our community is to support worthy organizations. This month's recipient is Thunder Road Therapeutic Writing. Please note, I believe that this is the last Sunday to support Thunder Road via our Share the Plate program. So if you haven't given yet, take a moment to do so today. You can visit Thunder Road, that's RODE.org, to learn more about the organization. To donate to the recipient, designate so on your check if you're mailing one. If you're giving via our website, you can select Share the Plate from the PayPal dropdown. In honor of the ways we support our congregation and our community, we will now sing the offertory, which will be different this Sunday. We're going to sing Magic Penny by Malvina Reynolds. And I learned that Malvina is the person who wrote the song Little Boxes, even if Pete Seeger helped make it famous. So I'm delighted to share another one of her songs with y'all today. And of course, my video controls are not accessible. There we go.
Love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. It's just like a magic penny. Hold it tight and you won't have any. Lend it, spend it, and you'll have so many. They'll roll all over the floor. For love is something if you give it away. Give it away. Give it away. Love is something if you give it away. You end up having more. Money's dandy and we like to use it, but love is better if you don't refuse it. It's a treasure and you'll never lose it unless you lock up your door. For love is something if you give it away. Give it away. Give it away. Love is something if you give it away. You end up having more. So let's go dance until the break of day. And if there's a piper, we can pay. For love is something if you give it away.
So I've got another video to share with you. This one is based on a folk tale of which there are many versions. One version features Tibetan monks in France, Hungary, and Russia. The travelers that we'll see in the story are soldiers returning home. In Eastern Europe, an axe is used instead of a stone. In Scandinavian countries, a nail replaces the stone. In one Native American version, a bear provides the stone. But in every version, the essential message remains the same. When each person makes a small contribution, the collective impact can be huge. So the story begins with these travelers going from door to door in a village asking for food. And everyone who has answered the door thus far has claimed they had no food to share. Now, share the video with you.
The travelers wandered wearily through the village, knocking on every door, but everywhere they heard, "I don't care. I won't share. There's no food." They sat to rest beside a well. One traveler sighed and clutched his empty belly. He said, "If there is really no food in this elegant little village, then the people who live here are in greater need than we are. We should make them our magical soup." The two travelers climbed up on the edge of the well and shouted, "We are master cooks. If anyone in this town has a big black pot, we will make the most delicious soup anyone ever tasted." A door slowly opened. A round man emerged, carrying a gigantic black pot. "I love to eat," he said. "Here's a pot. Let me see what two master cooks can do with it." "Watch and see," said one traveler with glee. The travelers filled the pot with cold water and built a fire. Soon the flames licked the sides of the pot, and billows of steam rose into the air. Curious people began to gather. "What is happening?" the townspeople asked. "Oh, we are making an unusual soup," said one of the travelers. "It requires a special magical ingredient. I am certain we will find it in this town." All the eyes in the crowd watched as one of the travelers reached down and picked up an ordinary stone. He tossed it into the pot with a splash. "We're making stone soup," he said. "It will be nutritious, delicious, incredible, and edible, but it would taste better." He paused and sighed. "If we only had a carrot." "Where would we find a carrot in this town?" the other traveler asked. "We knocked on every door, and everywhere we heard, 'I don't care, I won't share, there is no food.'" "Then perhaps we cannot make the delicious soup after all," they both announced with a sad shrug of their shoulders, and began to turn away. A child timidly raised her hand and said, "Wait! I might have a small carrot." "Excellent!" shouted the travelers. "Bring what you've got. Put it in the pot. We're making stone soup. This magical soup would taste even better if we had a potato," they added. A deep voice in the back of the crowd called out, "I have a potato." "Wonderful!" shouted the travelers. "Bring what you've got. Put it in the pot. We're making stone soup. It would taste better still," they said, "if we had just a few more ingredients." "Perhaps," said one villager, "I could bring a green bean." "Well," said another. If you are going to bring a green bean, I will bring a kernel of corn. I shall not be outdone, cried another. I will bring an egg noodle. One by one, voices announced. I will bring a slice of celery. I will bring a pinch of pepper. I can bring a sprig of parsley. I might have a tiny turnip. Well, why are you waiting? Cried the travelers. Bring what you've got. Put it in the pot. We're making stone soup. Everyone in the town ran home to bring one small thing to put in the pot. Food flew through the air and landed with splashes in the growing soup. Soon the huge pot was full and simmering. A wonderful smell drifted through the air. The smell was so tempting, people brought out bowls, spoons, chairs, and tables. They placed hearty loaves of bread, chunks of cheese, and bowls of fruit on the tablecloths. Everyone came to taste the soup and marveled at its flavor. "It's amazing," said one woman. "These two travelers made such a delicious soup out of a stone." "Out of a stone," said the travelers with a grin. "And a magical ingredient, sharing." As the travelers left the town, they said, "If anyone ever wants to make this soup again, just remember the recipe. Bring what you've got, put it in the pot. Every bit counts, from the largest to the least. Together we can celebrate a stone soup feast."
So I have asked our wonderful treasurer, Beth Wahlberg, to say a few words about our own congregation's acts of abundance, the way in which we share the magic penny, the way in which we bring what we've got and put it in the pot. She'll talk about the Share the Plate program and the covenant renewal process. Yeah.
Thank you, Karen. Good morning.
Morning.
Can everybody hear? Can you hear me? Okay. Yes, I'm your highly qualified and extremely competent treasurer. And so I just wanted to share a couple things. I was thinking about it, and we're like the RBG. We're like the Ruth Bader Ginsburg of congregations. We are small, but boy, are we mighty. And it's so fun to see some of the things on paper of what we've done with this small little group that we are. So first, I'm just going to share a little bit about our current budget year. And of course, that's been affected a lot by how we're meeting. So basically, our budget revenues we budgeted for about $28,000, and we're right on track for collecting our pledges and things. We're 2/3 of the way through the year, and we're almost exactly 2/3 of the way through that amount, or collected that amount. And then on the expenditure side, of course, our expenditures are quite a bit lower. So we're feeling very comfortable with where we are, even though we've had a few people who have had to change their giving, which is totally understandable. We're still doing fine, and we've only spent about, or less than 50% of our budget. So that's looking really good. Then that's primarily because of our rent. We're not paying rent at Lincolnberry, and we're not having some of the copying expenses and things like that. But then when you start to look at all the community giving we have done this year, it's amazing to see the numbers. As far as the Share the Plate program, we've given in 2020, we have given close to $600 worth of money to different organizations. The holiday gift family that we sponsored, we gave them $1,100 worth of Decorah Chamber dollars. And we also gave the heating assistance program $750, and the weatherization program at community action, $750. And then we were able to save some of the auction proceeds for our own fellowship. One thing about the Share the Plate we have, that is one thing, because we're not meeting in person, we are seeing less being collected. So keep that in mind, but also the board made the decision to always donate at least $100 per organization, whether we've collected that or not. So starting in about October, I think we did that. And then PayPal has been really helpful for us. We have donations coming in through there that we use to pay for our Zoom fees and different things. So we are having a big impact on our community. And then as far as the covenant process for this coming year, in the next few weeks, you'll be getting our form that we send out. And hopefully we'll be able to be in person at some time during this next fiscal year. So we will include on there, what things you're interested in doing should we go back to in-person meetings. And then our goal would be to get those back sometime in early April, and then our annual meeting will be in May. So does anyone have any questions or?
I have a comment. Am I right? I can't remember for sure, but I think maybe $1,100 didn't go to just one family on the Christmas. I think maybe we collected more than and left it to the discretion of community action to pad another family's Christmas money. But I'm not
okay.
certain.
Good, thank you, Ellen. I didn't know exactly how that worked. So at any rate, we had two separate amounts that we gave of chamber dollars, and then that was maybe distributed to multiple families. So that would be even better.
It was fabulous the way the money came in.
Thank you, Ellen.
Any other questions for Beth? Beth, would you mind, and you may not know this off the top of your head, and if you don't, that's okay, reminding us of some of the Share the Plate recipients we've had over the past fiscal year? Obviously, Thunder Road has been this month and last month, but who else has benefited?
The Friends of the Decorah Public Library, Carolyn's, the CARE program, Citizens Against, or what is it called?
Collective Action for Racial Equality.
Oh, right, yeah. And the food pantry, we gave quite a bit of money last spring and summer to the food pantry. So those are the main ones, I guess.
I'll tell you all, I went to a General Assembly a few years ago, not the most recent one that I went to. And they talked about how they found that actually their most vibrant congregations were the ones that did not keep all of their income for themselves. The most vibrant congregations were the ones that shared their generosity with the wider community. So I am very happy that we are such a congregation. Thank you, Beth, for sharing with us about that. I have set myself what may be a bit of a challenge, so we'll see how this goes. Before I sing the closing song, which is the challenge, I have asked Otter to include several questions to ponder in the bulletin and in the upcoming e-news. And these questions, which delve more deeply into covenant, I hope will stimulate your minds and imaginations. And I'll also post the questions on the screen after the service is formally over. So in the meanwhile, I am going to sing for you a medley of songs that come from Singing for the Green, Songs for Fun and Money, a publication of the UUA's Annual Program Fund Continental Committee, which I found through the UUA website. Please note that these songs are definitely parodies and offered in playfulness. Again, I appreciate our congregation's more holistic approach, renewing our covenant and recognizing gifts of time and talent, not just money. That said, I hope that you'll find these as funny as I did. You will hear that term canvas that I mentioned earlier. And you'll probably recognize all of the tunes. And we'll see how twisted my tongue is by the end of it. We're going to canvass you some Sunday. Our church needs each and every dime. Spare us the stall points, pull out your ballpoints, and get your pledge to us on time. We've got to have a balanced budget. Income and outgo gotta rhyme. If not, we'll rue it. You all can do it. Just get your pledge to us on time. When we come calling, unlatch your door. You'll make us happy just by pledging more. Yes, we're going to canvass you some Sunday. Income and outgo gotta rhyme. Spruce up your deuces, make no excuses, and give your pledge to us. Give your pledge to us. For Pete's sake, give your pledge to us on time. Budget time and the living ain't easy. Costs are jumping and inflation is high. Oh, your church ain't rich and there's things that need fixing. And every committee wants a piece of the pie. One of these mornings we'll have more outgo than income. And we'll watch our bills as they climb to the sky. So keep that morning off our calendar this year. When canvassers call and ask to stop by. I am the very model of a modern Unitarian, far broader than a Catholic, Hindu, Jew, or Presbyterian. I know the world's religions and can trace their roots historical, from Moses up to Channing, all in order categorical. I'm very well acquainted too with theories theological. On existential questions, I am always truly logical. About most any problem, I am teeming with a lot of views. I'm full of fine ideas that should fill the church's empty pews. I quote from Freud and Jung and all the expert psychological. I'm anti-Newton, don't logical. In short, in matters spiritual, ethical, material, I am the very model of today's religious liberal. I use the latest language. God is never Father or the Lord, but ground of being, source of life, or almost any other word. I never pray, I meditate, I'm leery about worshiping. I serve on 10 committees, none of which accomplish anything. I give to worthy causes and I drive a gas conserving car. I really do. I have a hybrid. I have to use principles of what they are. I'm open to opinions of profound and broad variety, unless they're too conservative or smack of righteous piety. I can formulate agendas and discuss them with the rest of them, but don't ask me to implement. I leave that to the rest of them. In short, and not a spiritual, ethical material, I am the very model of today's religious liberal. I'm on the list of charities and PACs and causes by the score. So I plead poverty when you canvassers come to my door. I have to want to give, for I'm impervious to guilt and fear. I hate to deal with pleas for funds that I don't really want to hear. Words like duty, pledge, and vision make my skin begin to crawl. And mission, sacrifice, and tithing drive me up the wall. You know I'd never leave our fine association in the lurch. I put $5 in the plate most every time I come to church. I'm active in my congregation, generous with my advice. It's hard to make commitments, and I hope intentions will suffice. If I could share these things with the spirit and material, I'd be the very model of a true religious liberal. Oh, the end. Thank you. Thank you. Please join me in extinguishing the chalice, reading the text printed in the bulletin, which I have also posted on the screen. Cheered by our community, blessed by our covenant, uplifted in mind and renewed in spirit, go forth with courage and in peace to meet the days to come. Amen. Before we say goodbye, was there anything in the chat that I may have missed that we should be sure to share, especially for our audio only participants? I think we're good. People are enjoying the songs. I'm glad to hear it. You all have a wonderful Sunday. We are about to end this virtual gathering, but please continue to stay in touch with one another throughout the week until we come together again. And as I promised, I will share the questions to ponder on the screen. I'll also read them out loud for accessibility reasons, but feel free to drop off the call. Have a wonderful Sunday and an enjoyable week. And we will see you in 2 Sundays. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you, Karen.
This was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So glad you could come, Linda, and everyone else, of course. I am going to read these questions, but again, it's fine if you want to drop off. While a contract has the force of law, a covenant has the force of love. What are some of the covenants you have made, whether implicit or explicit? The Reverend Preston Moore observes that when we fail to keep our covenant, as we do from time to time, we ask, how shall we recover from this failure? How shall we keep going? How does the covenant become stronger by overcoming failure? The Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker writes, we receive who we are before we choose who we will become. The truth is that we are born into the middle of a story. In the same way, she writes, we inherit covenant before we create covenant. What story were you born into? How did it influence you? What covenants have you inherited? What covenants have you created? And the Reverend Victoria Safford quotes someone who said, covenant is a promise I keep to myself about the kind of person I want to be, the kind of life I mean to have together with other people and with all other living things. Why is this important? Do you have a covenant with yourself? If yes, how does it inform your actions? If no, could such a covenant bring clarity to who you are and what you do? If anybody's itching to stay on and talk about any of this, we certainly can. Otherwise, I hope these are thought-provoking questions that you can consider not only today, but throughout the week.
I really,
Okay, go ahead, Sue.
I was just going to say, I really like this exploration of covenant because I think as UUs, we often have a hard time when someone asks just who we are. And when we say, well, we don't have a creed, you know, we covenant together, but we don't have a creed. And they, well, you don't believe anything? And I said, well, no, that's not how it is, but it's hard to find that little elevator speech to make that difference. And so these questions have some good ways of looking at it, I think, to start making a response that might be easier for people to understand.
Linda, I saw you had come off mute.
Oh, I just came off mute because I thought this was just a discussion.
It is a discussion. We tend to not go crazy in terms of everybody coming off mute at one time just because there's crosstalk that can happen on Zoom. But of course, like Okay, it's fine. It's more about, in my world, I have dogs that will start just barking in the background. And so I tend to mute whenever I'm not talking.
I will follow the custom.
Is there anybody else who'd like to share before we say goodbye?
That last paragraph really spoke to me. I liked that one a lot. Promise I keep to myself. I like that.
All right, y'all. Well, it's been lovely to spend the Sunday morning with you, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Thanks again, Karen and Beth and Ellis for the great video.
I will be sure to make sure that Ellis knows.
Good.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.